What is going on, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. Aftersound here, bringing you Splinterlands content every single day. We also stream right here in this channel every Tuesday, Thursday, and Sunday morning, so come by and say hello. All right, guys, another week, another town hall. This is the last one for the month of April, so just like that, 1/3 of the quarter is now done as we're going to move on to May starting next week. So this, just for people who might be new to the channel, who might be new to the series, every week or whenever there's a town hall, I'll give my 5 biggest takeaways. So this is not a full recap or summary. There's other awesome content creators out there. And then what we're looking at is actually the official summary from the team. So you can go and check that out on the Peak D blog. We'll use that for some some visual references. But you can see here that I have my own notes, and thankfully it's not as long as it was last week. So let's go ahead and just dive right in. First thing, the 425 release, which actually has just happened already because I'm recording this right after maintenance has completed. But we have 3 major things coming, which I think people should be aware of. We have staked SPS delegation. We have locking of deeds specific for land, and then DECB will now be able to be spent for guild upgrades. So all of these are things that we have been looking forward to for a while, or even just a short bit, but they're here now, and that is really exciting. Now, the staked SPS is one that came up as a little bit of a surprise because Matt said it was going to be a couple of weeks in last week's town hall. So I was expecting it sometime in May, and mainly because he said a couple of weeks after that is when we could expect SPS staking requirements to replace collection power. So we have this now in April. SPS staking or SPS delegation is here, which means that we will hopefully get, get SPS staking requirements right around the corner since this is live, and hopefully will be functioning well. I haven't seen anything or any issues with it, but as long as I don't have to roll anything back, hopefully we'll figure out exactly what the team is thinking and where they're going with the whole SPS staking requirements, because I don't think any of those details have really been shared yet. In fact, it may not have even been fully formed when Matt was speaking in the last town hall, or at least finalized. Locking of deeds is important. I want to make sure everybody remembers to lock your land in the same way that you can lock your cards. I mean, these things are going for much more than a lot of the cards out there, so you want to make sure that you are protecting yourself so somebody can't just come in, sell it to themselves, or transfer to themselves, or whatever the case is. And then, of course, DECB is always a fun one. We still have about 500 million to burn through, and hopefully that will help spur some of the guild growth that we'd like to see. Okay, number 2, some upcoming timelines here, because, every town hall, we always get a little hint of like what may be coming when. So at least over the next 6 to 8 weeks, I would say this is the expectation, right? And some of it is disappointing. Some of it might be good, right? Guild buildings, it sounded as though Aggie would love to get some kind of new guild buildings up before June, so before the end of May. And keep in mind, their PI planning ends May 23rd. So, they wanted to get some guild buildings up. We have about a month or so before the end of the PI planning. And my hope is that we can get something, right? I don't know if it'll be a lot, but at least something would be really cool. Maybe just a guild building here or 2, and then we add slowly over time, rather than it being this whole thing where it's just like, if they were going to add 4 guild buildings, right? Or you really expand guilds out, we don't have to wait until all 4 are ready to go. We can just wait until 1 is ready or 2 is ready, and then start using that as a DEC sync and a way to keep guilds and players engaged. Now, I'm going to skip down to tower defense here because we were expecting tower defense by the end of May. That was the last that we heard from David, who's the CEO of Double Coconut, the studio that's building this with Splinterlands. When he was on a couple weeks back, he said they were going to try and go by the end of May. And in yesterday's town hall, Aggie said that's probably going to be early June, to which Weirdbeard replied, it's probably going to be mid-June because early June is going to be GLG. So we can expect Genesis League goals hopefully by early June. I think June 6th is the date that they set for themselves many months back when they did that proposal to pay out or continue paying out pack staking rewards. So June 6th is still really the only deadline that we have for any of these upcoming projects, but it sounds like they're going to stick with that, and then tower defense should be following that. And then, of course, land is, land is looking good. I don't even include it here. Land is looking good for, or land 1.5, I should say, is looking good for by the end of Q2. But again, we'll see how things play out. Now, here's the important thing. There's all this talk about new game modes, and Weirdbeard actually got into a great conversation, or maybe we'll call it a rant, just talking about how all of these things that he wants to get put into the game, everything is just sidelined until land, right? We need to get land 1.5 out. And then as soon as that is done, it sounds like the floodgates kind of open. Sure, there will be land phase 2, but I think the team is going to allow themselves to breathe a little bit and focus on other areas of the game that could use a little love. So once we get land phase 1.5 out, and hopefully, fingers crossed, that does come out by the end of June, the end of Q2, hopefully there will be some more focus on other game modes and other ways in which we can engage with the Splinterlands ecosystem after that in Q3. So to me, that's really exciting. But I wouldn't expect anything until like late Q3 at the very, very earliest, simply because if they're not focusing on it now, they're not planning or anything, it's just all hands on deck for land, well, they're probably going to start July 1st. Maybe not even July 1st. They'll give themselves a little bit of a break, right? And then start thinking about it in July. So keep that in mind. It sounds like it's all hands on deck for land, but there's still a lot coming before the end of the quarter, or at least over the next 2 months, with guilds, with GLG, tower defense, and of course, land phase 1.5. Okay, number 3. So somebody suggested the idea of like doing a digital Splinterfest, to which Aggie replied that he wants to create a virtual space in which we could all hang out. Now, this was not a Splinterfest like type of event. And if you remember back, the team used to do these Digicon type of events where you just go, it's a virtual space to hang, interact with other people in the community and in the game. And he said he wanted to build something like that for Splinterlands itself. And I don't think that's going to be like a one-off thing. I think it's going to be like an ongoing thing. So he did tease that like a while back, and I wonder where that project is now. But that was his response to the whole digital Splinterfest, as somebody in the comments had suggested. The other part that he mentioned about a potential Splinterfest is using a promo card to potentially fund a Splinterfest or some kind of in-person gathering. Now, we are about to have a promo card here in May, right? So end of April, early May. I would not expect another promo card until sometime in the summer. July probably would even be too early, because if we're doing this in the second quarter or second month of the second quarter, I would say early August would be probably the earliest that we should see the next promo card. I don't think we want to space them out appropriately, right? Have one every quarter, but you don't want to do one that's like 2 months apart, and even though they're separated by a quarter break. So it's an interesting thought. And maybe there's no even like this is an extra thing that is on top of the regular promo cards. But it is an interesting thought to see what could be done if the team was trying to raise some capital in order to have some kind of in-person event. I don't know how that's going to go. It was just kind of thrown out as an idea there. And I don't think it's terrible. But it is what it is for right now. I wouldn't say that it's definitely going to happen, but it is exciting to think that there could be another potential in-person gathering. Okay, number 4, and this is probably the biggest one, so I don't know why I put it so far down the list, but the Grain DEC LP, right? We all know with Land Phase 1.5 that there is going to be a way that you can trade grain for DEC and vice versa, and that you will be able to provide liquidity, and there'll be all the taxes will be paid out to people who are providing liquidity. And the interesting thing was, I think we all assumed that this would be in game, because in order to remove it from the game and go into something like Hive Engine, there would be some massive taxes. But what I thought was interesting from Aggie is he said, we don't want to have anything that could represent any kind of exchange within the game itself. That could lead to a lot of scrutiny. That could lead to legal and not security issues, but just regulatory issues, right? And so the moment he brought that up, I was just like, oh, well, that's kind of the opposite of what I was expecting, what I think everybody was expecting, right? We all want to see an automated market maker built within Splinterlands that we can use and fund, and essentially that is a decentralized exchange, right? Similar to a PancakeSwap, similar to a Hive Engine, similar to any of these other, or Uniswap. So it was just going to be one pairing, but if there's going to be regulatory issues, I wonder how the team is going to tackle that. Now, Aggie might have just been not looking at the big picture. He might have just been, speaking without fully thinking it through. But that is something that stuck out to me, and I wanted to share with you guys, because I don't know if the team wants to build all of this cool stuff on land, and land is going to have all these different things, but they don't want to build it in game. What is that going to look like? Because that's going to change a lot of, even just the white paper now, where it's like, well, if the LP is only going to be on Hive Engine, right? And there probably will be an LP on Hive Engine that will exist just for people that want to transfer out from one side to the other. Does that change a lot of the plans, and will that need to change the white paper essentially? So I don't know. To me, it sounds like there needs to be a little bit more conversation on what exactly we're going to expect and how to navigate the regulatory issues or hurdles that may come up in the future. But if they don't want this in game, that's gonna be an interesting. It's just going to be an interesting hurdle to tackle. So at this point in time, I was expecting it, or up until this point in time, I was expecting it to be in game, for it to be seamless. But that put a big question mark on what the infrastructure of how land essentially is going to function. The market around land is going to function both in 1.5 and then even more so in phase 2 when we have all of the crazy resources added to the game. So, I'm curious what people thought of that. If you heard the same thing as me, or if maybe I misunderstood. Okay. And number 5, we're making actually phenomenal time with this. Number 5, I'm saying this only just because Golem Overlord seems to be so popular right now. Nate teased the idea of an idle game as a potential new game mode in the future. And he did it not with the intention of trying to tease it. It was more so people were how do we get more value out of certain cards? How do we retain this? How do we interact with the game? Somebody even made a comment 24 free games per day isn't enough. I want to be able to play more and blah, blah, blah. So there was a lot of talking. There was a lot of back and forth about between Nate and then of course Weirdbeard was involved as well about these new game modes, right? Because Weirdbeard has been championing that. But it was Nate who teased an idea. He's just who knows? Maybe in the future there will be some kind of, idle game that allows people to level up in the game and do all these different things. And I immediately thought, all right, this is the Golem Overlord effect, right? This game is super popular right now. People are seeing that it is successful. And even folks like myself are looking at it and saying this could be a game mode within Splinterlands that burns a ton of DEC and vouchers, right? And if you can get people excited about it, if it gives you something of value, if there's a different kind of meta to it, that should be added in ASAP, because people are really, really enjoying it in a completely separate game. So, the fact that Nate teased the idea makes me a little giddy, because I'm just okay, Nate wouldn't tease the idea, even though it was completely hypothetical, right? He wouldn't tease the idea if the team wasn't talking about what's going on within the rest of the Hive ecosystem. And we know that Matt is playing Golem Overlord. I think he's actually number 14 on the leaderboards. So to me, it's exciting that I don't want to downplay what Yixin has done with Golem Overlord. I don't know how much work goes into it, but I know he works really hard. But if it's one of those things where it's it's not going to be that much work to add into the game, and you just add this new game mode that can be its own separate thing that people can interact with and just check in a couple times a day, earn some things. I don't know. To me, that could be really exciting. So just the fact that these conversations seem like they're being had, right? I'm kind of reading between the lines here. Makes me excited, because I would love to get new game modes that don't require a crazy overhaul or whatever. It's stuff that it's if it could be added in, and it's just a nice to have. And it just allows people to get excited and to do something else, right? You play your battles, you're done. But if you could play your battles and then do some challenges or jump into a 2v2 mode, or do an arena run, right? As Weirdbeard's talked about, or if there's a battle pass, all these different things I think could add so much value, which makes me excited for Q3. And I am still freaking hyped for Q2, or the end of Q2. So I'm excited for what is to come. And I just like where the conversations are being had right now. Okay, last things, we got some bonus items. So Investigator is leading an audit, which is great. I feel like this should probably just be done regularly rather than after a major hack last week. Zerial, which is the promo card. I did a completely separate video on this, so I didn't want to cover it here, but obviously it was a huge part of this town hall. But it is a dual element monster, going to be life and death. And like I said, we can go here if you just want to see the eye candy, which is pretty good, I gotta say. So there you go. There's some eye candy, and then here's the card itself. You get you get weapons training, Life Leech, Divine Shield, and Rust. So I think it's going to be a pretty solid card overall. I know I've given my thoughts on it on stream and in the other video, but ultimately I'm excited, and it could burn a ton of vouchers, 2.4 million vouchers, which I'm really hoping that it does. And then lastly, shout out to Rondon and the Splinterlands TV streamer, or Splinterlands TV team and streamers, I suppose. But it sounds like they're going to continue their monthly cadence of doing something awesome. We don't know the details yet, but Monster Mayhem is what has been set for May. And yes, I suppose pun intended. So keep an eye out for that. Should be more interesting, or should be more details, I should say, coming out in the future, as we are less than a week away from the month of May. Crazy times. All right, guys, that is all I have for you in this video. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. How are you feeling about this town hall? If you watched it, if you didn't watch it, do you have any other questions or things that you want me to dig further into? Otherwise, I will catch you all in the next video and see you around the game. Take care.